I guess give me a little bit about your background. Tell me where you're from and how long you've been in Georgia.
Okay. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee originally, but my family moved here in December of 1987. We moved into Lawrenceville, right on the edge of Snellville, and my parents actually still live here. But I ended up going to Brookwood High School. I graduated here in '99, and then went off to college and came back, moved out of state and came back because family was here, but Gwinnett was here. And Gwinnett kept growing. There was tons of jobs here. There was a lot of opportunity, and it was a great county. And so there was no reason not to come back here. And then I wanted to raise a family, and I said, well, I want the same education and the values and things that we had here, so I see no better place to do it than where I grew up.
So, what was the school system like and the experience back then in your view?
Sure. Gwinnett has always been known for excellence, and it started probably in the late 80s, but it really grew in the 90s. So I just happened to get lucky right as I was coming up. Gwinnett was coming up real big too, and we were winning national awards for being schools of excellence. Brookwood High School has been noted for decades now for being one of those top tier, really successful, high academic quality schools. And it was great because it challenged you. I actually was a little ahead. I was in gifted classes, and they had the teachers and the education to keep me interested. A lot of kids who are in that department end up real bored because they're not there. You end up with discipline issues, mainly just because they're not being given stuff to do. But I've seen it in all kinds of schools around here, not just the one I went to. You had teachers that cared, that really worked hard. You had administration that actually was really interactive with. I was friends with my high school principal. She ended up putting me on something as a senior because she knew what I could do. And that's what you want for your kids. You want them to have that system that's supportive, but also prepares them for what they're going to do later in life. They pushed for college, but they even pushed for technical school back then. They knew some kids weren't going to go to college, but they wanted to prepare them to be an adult. And so I think Gwinnett County schools have always done a real good job of trying to make sure they prepare their students for what comes after school. And we're hoping it'll stay that way.
Okay. Can you talk about the leadership back then?
Sure. I mean, I remember the big change for me was 1997. Emmett Lawson, at the time, I think was the superintendent, and he stepped down, and we brought in Alvin Wilbanks. And at that time, things really started taking off. He ran it like a businessman. He ran it as a CEO. At the time, there was less than 100,000 students, and it grew to almost 180 by the time he was out of the system. They won multiple national awards. He won state superintendent. They got all sorts of different accolades from various organizations. But the focus was that we have to keep growing this and maintaining it like a business. So where a business would expand, we got new schools. We got new programs. They'd bring in new hires. But all of that was done under his watch. Every principal in the system was hired by him personally. They'd bring them up, but he had to judge those people and bring them in. A 25-year career like that's hard to find. The guy had an amazing track record. There really wasn't much stumble there. So, I mean, you can't ask for more than that.
So, fast forwarding to now, what is your assessment overall of where the school system in Gwinnett County stands? And what are some of the main things that we need to improve on?
Okay, so it's huge. It is the 12th largest school district in the nation, not just the state. We're number one in the state, but 12th overall in the nation. That's a big job. And I think, and again, even under Alvin Wilbanks there towards the end, we'd gotten so big that I think a lot of things are being overlooked. 60% of our schools are Title I schools, which are a low or poverty level source of income. And I think there's a lot of work that can be done in those schools to better support those kids, but also those families. I think there's a lot of gap in what I've seen in countywide, not just those schools, where in the past, you had a lot of teacher-parent involvement. And with technology and things now, they shoot you an email or you get a message here. You don't have that teacher calling home and saying, hey, look, little Timmy's doing this. The parents have changed too, though, let's be honest. When they'd call and say, hey, Stephen did so-and-so, my dad would say, oh, I got that under control, don't you worry. Now, a lot of parents say, not my kid, that's not happening. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect with the parents and the teachers not being on the same page. But with a system as big as it is, I think you need to break down almost more into smaller pockets. So you got 180,000 students, you got 23,000 staff, and you have 5 board members and 1 superintendent that are supposed to oversee everything. Stuff falls through the cracks. I would like to see, and I don't know how we could make this possible, but almost by those districts, I would like to see them broken up into clusters and have somebody oversee each one, with maybe the head superintendent overseeing that, and more focus put into each one of these schools, because nothing in a system with 180,000 students is a one-size-fits-all. Let's just face it, it's not. And needs that are going to happen in the south end of the county, say at Norcross High School, are completely different than stuff that happens in the north side of the county at Mill Creek. The students are different, the situations are different, everything's different. So you can't apply a Band-Aid in a one-size-fits-all situation for the entire system and hope it works. You're always going to leave somebody out. You're always going to make somebody mad.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about curriculum.
Okay.
There's been a lot of talk, a lot of concern about the curriculum as far as CRT and math achievements, and what is your position on what we should be teaching our children and what should be totally off limits?
Okay. So, and then I got kind of deep into this over the last year. I'll be the first one to tell you that critical race theory is not taught in Gwinnett County. What is taught in Gwinnett County is a certain viewpoint of facts from teachers who teach through a critical race lens. Okay, there's no academic subject for this, but we've never really said that there was. It's how the teachers are taking information and disseminating it based on what they learned in college through critical race theory. So it's more of the opinion of a teacher and how they're presenting the education that I think has got some people concerned. Because, for instance, it's February, it's Black History Month. There's a lot that could be covered this month. But how is it framed? Is it framed that here's history, here's great black leaders, great black achievements, here's the things going on? Or do we have a teacher who wants to view it through that CRT lens and let people know that the only reason that this is this way is we have white supremacy and systemic racism that's still holding people down to this day, and until we change X, Y, and Z, this won't go away? Well, one's a positive, one's a negative, but both are opinions when we're supposed to be teaching facts. So I would like to them at least admit, yeah, we got teachers who do that. Anthony Downer was a perfect example. He used to teach at Peachtree Ridge. He actually left the system for a job in Atlanta, but that guy would do everything in his power to drag every bit of that through the system. And he fully admitted it. There's multiple videos out there on how he wanted to do it. They found an audit syllabus recently that was for an AP level class, but it was supposed to discuss that the teacher knew how to do this, and they said this was one of the lenses we want our kids to go through. Now the argument's been, well, it's a college level class. It doesn't matter. It's still in the high school. Those kids are still being taught through a certain way. I don't really care personally. What I want, though, is that these kids are going to get an education, an academically sound education based on fact, based on merit, not based on opinion and not based on feelings, because your feelings about something are completely different than mine. And we agree on a lot of stuff, but your viewpoint is different than mine. That's okay. As a parent, I want my child to get an objective, fact-filled education. When it comes to interpretation, when it comes to feelings and emotions and morality and things, we set that in our home. That's not the school's job to do. What I think has happened and there's multiple studies you could look at on this over the last 20, 30 years, the education system has tried to take on the role of the de facto parent. And they've, for whatever reason, whether it's single parent homes, whether it's parents that just don't care, whether there's multiple reasons that kids aren't maybe getting some of this foundation at home, and the school system has taken it upon themselves to try to implement that in these kids. Well, in the homes that have two parents and are already doing that, we don't want to have to try to unprogram what the school is teaching that we don't possibly agree with in our own home, or what our kids might not even agree with.
Do you believe that the school curriculum should be approved by parents on an annual basis, and any light concepts that they, whether it be CRT or comprehensive sex education, do you believe that we should move towards maybe even legislation that maybe it's a small group of randomly selected parents that will have to agree on or disagree with a particular curriculum, and if they reject it, have them submit something different? What are your thoughts and views on that?
So the county currently has a couple of systems that are actually in place for that. When they go through their AKS stuff, they do have a curriculum review committee that you can apply to be on. In the past, they'd have maybe 30 people apply for it for 12 slots. This year, they received over 350 because parents are starting to pay attention. That being said, they do go through the curriculum. Generally, when it's new curriculum, they want to add stuff, they go over that. They don't necessarily circle back, but they do have a process for that. It's teachers and parents and administrators all on it. What I believe is that we need open transparency about what's being taught, period. Whether that's, if you agree with comprehensive sex ed for your child and that's available, then by all means let them have it. If there's another parent that doesn't want their children going through that at school, if we have an open, transparent, a website, documentation where we can see exactly what it is, and the parents aren't okay with that, there needs to be an alternative. It's not necessarily an opt-out. There needs to be a different program. And if that's the case, then there'll be a teacher for that, because there won't ever just be one. In 180,000 students, there will be plenty that say, not mine. So we should be able to do that fairly easily if we have two sex ed teachers. Well, this one's handling this one, this one's handling that. Critical race theory, same thing, okay? Plenty of parents would be fine with it. It doesn't matter their background. There are plenty of white parents who would be just as fine with it as black parents or Hispanics, whatever. But for the people that don't want that, and for whatever reason, I don't even need a reason, okay? It can be political, it can be emotional, it can be, you could be a bigot. You could just not want that, okay? Whatever it is, your children are your responsibility. Until they're 18 years old, the government says they're your problem, your problem, but they're yours and you are to raise them. It's not the school's job, it's not the government's job. And if your family has a religious belief, a personally held conviction, whatever it is that causes you to not want that to be part of their education, then you should be able to opt out. But if we don't know what is being taught, we have no idea until it comes home and we go, excuse me, what is this? So I firmly believe that parents should at least have that open transparency. And they say they have it. There's certain AKS that you can get into on the website. I'm actually on my son's local school council at his elementary school, and they showed us where we could find that stuff. And they showed us the process of how they even do it in school, in their own school, how they approve curriculum and go through that. But you have to really dig to find it, and it's not all there. So I think if there's nothing to hide, there should be no reason why we don't put it out in light, right?
Right. So agreeing on a core part of the education like math, reading, just a few subjects that are going to be hard coded.
Sure.
Right. Not introducing any sub concepts. An example would be, we're not allowed to teach sex, but we're going to include it in a scenario in a math problem. Johnny sees two girls. Which one does he want to, You know,
Right.
so that's still a light concept.
Sure.
So, would you be fine? What would be your view on having a decision made that's set in stone as far as those core teachings, and anything outside of that should be approved by parents and signed off on in a disclosure?
I don't have a problem with that at all. And actually, one of the speeches I gave to the school board, I told them, you're supposed to be the 3 R's, right? Which are never the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. So we've got a W, an A, and an R in there. We should have taught ourselves better. Those are the 3 things that these kids are supposed to. You got to read, you got to write, and you got to learn how to do math. Now, we also need science, and we need history. There's no way around that. These are the core subjects that you're going to need to either go on to an advanced education in college, or at least to just know things as an adult. Yes, we all do have calculators on our phones now. Our teachers were wrong, but you still need to know the concept. Those should be set in stone, and those shouldn't be open to exactly what you just said. We're not going to take a math problem that's 2 + 2 and throw what could be considered a controversial subject and make it a weird word problem. But it's math. No, it's not. Math is 2 + 2 = 4. It's not, well, Johnny saw 2 girls and then this was going on here. Give me math. Math is math. Numbers never change. Reading and writing, there are different concepts on how to teach these subjects, whether it's phonics, whether it's this, but the subject should stay the same. Now, when it comes to things you're talking about, that could even be an elective level class if you wanted it to be in high school. You know, elementary and middle school, you're dealing with a lot. You're dealing with young kids. You're dealing with puberty. That's already hard enough anyway between 6th through 8th grade. High school kids can start getting into more advanced subject levels, and I have no problem with that. If you want to have an elective, that is straight up civics and through a critical race theory lens, if that's something that your child or your family want to do, by all means, knock yourself out. Don't make it a requirement, make it an elective. Because some kids want that. Some parents want that. I don't. But that's where I'm at. I think that we've gotten so far away from parental involvement, whether it's helping with curriculum or parents even just giving a damn period about what's going on at the school because they assume that, well, it's good. They know what they're doing. We got this under. I got to go to work. I got things to do. COVID really changed that because suddenly parents were basically co-teaching. We were having to help with assignments. We were having to help with things. And suddenly we were seeing things that we weren't aware were even going on. And so that changed a lot of parents' involvement in the school system, period. I mean, I was not involved before COVID. I'll be blatantly honest. My son's in 3rd grade now, but this started when he was in the 1st grade. Well, kindergarten and 1st grade are like cruise control, right? You go learn how to use crayons and letters and things, and that's fine. But once we got to 2nd grade, you start getting into a little more deep. They need help. And that's when I started paying more attention to what was going on.
So what would your suggestion be to parents that feel like they want to get involved but don't know where to start?
Okay.
What would be yours?
I'll tell you exactly how I did, okay? When COVID first started, we shut the schools down. Kids were at home, staying at home. And that was cool for 3 months, March to end of May in 2020. That's how we were going to finish school. But we expected to go back in August. And we weren't hearing that we were going to. And so it kind of became a fight. You had some rallies and things where people were basically trying to get the media attention as well as the school's attention and say, hey, look, we want our kids to go back to school. And I had a friend from high school call and say, you seen what's going on with this stuff? No, I hadn't. So I started taking a look. I said, yeah, I'll come. I'll come to a meeting. That's fine. I want my kid to go back to school. I'd like to be able to get out of my house. And so once we did that and kind of got involved with it, I started paying more attention. And then when we had a new board come in, they called an emergency meeting out of nowhere. And so I said, are you going to go to that meeting? I said, well, yeah, I need to go see why there's an emergency. And the next thing I know, they're trying to keep kids back out of school. They wanted to put the mask back on. They even talked about the superintendent's contract that night. And these people have been in office for 48 hours. I said, what are you doing? Kids are supposed to go back to school. So then I started digging. And I started finding out who these people were, these board members. And I looked at their campaign stuff. They're not in my district, so I didn't look at them before. But the people, what people don't understand is just because your district member might do what you want, their decisions affect everybody. And so I started seeing what was going on. I looked at one particular candidate, and her really radical ideas on a lot of things before she got elected. The speeches that she had done, the rally she had done, I said, well, now, wait a minute, is she bringing this into my son's school? And so I had a friend ask me to sign up to speak. And back before all this started happening, school board meetings were very boring. 10 to 12 people spoke. They were in, they were out. It was no big deal. With Therese Johnson was running for office, she started coming in there and just giving flaming campaign speeches at the mic, calling board members that were active at the time segregationalists, daughters of the Confederacy. I mean, she was making these accusations on a public microphone, on video, in a school board meeting, just campaigning for herself. And I said, this is wrong. Well, could you go up there and speak? I said, I mean, I could. I'm used to doing some public speaking from high school. I played football, but I also did theater, so I'm used to talking in front of people. I said, well, yeah, I'll give a speech. Well, be careful, because the last people who did, they were attacked. They were doxxed. They had people call their jobs and say these things. I said, well, that's all right. I work for myself. I'm not worried about a boss letting me go. And I'm more worried about my son than I am about what any of these people who might disagree with what I say can do. Now, I've had a lot of parents reach out over the last 12 months because some people like my, in fact, the first night I gave a speech in January, I wore a face mask because I thought maybe it'd be better to hide my face a little bit. I was going to say some things that were not going to be popular, and I wore this hat that I'm wearing right now. And I was really concerned about people's reaction and looking at the comments of the video. Who's the guy in the black hat? Who's that guy in the black hat? So I said, all right, I'll just keep wearing the hat. That way people know it's the same guy. Once you get that fear out of the way, once you get that unease or the worry out of the way the first time, it's a whole lot easier, because you start to realize that Antonio's opinion of me doesn't matter. Therese Johnson's opinion of me doesn't matter. What does matter is what happens to my kids, what happens to their education, what happens to this county as a result of that education. Because Gwinnett has been a magnet for education for 40 years now. That brought big business here. It brings jobs. It brings improvements to the county. And if you start screwing with that school system, you're going to start screwing with those other dominoes too. And if you knock enough of them down, you won't have this county anymore. So if you want to speak out, if you want to say something and you're afraid to do it, call me. Call the other people that you see speak. But dig down deep, because we need new people. We need new faces. And we will support you. I said it in July when we were talking at that meeting. I need other parents, and we will have your back. It can't be the same 20 people speaking all the time, because there are a lot of people out there who feel the same way. They're just scared to say something. If you don't want to give a public speech, fine. Email your school board. Email your congressman. Email your senators. You can get involved without having to be the person giving that 3-minute speech on video. You just have to realize that it's important enough to do it. And that takes time. It takes effort. And it takes you away from maybe things you want to be doing. But are your kids worth it? Use the time.